check this out. I have this little slip of paper that I've drawn a stick man on both sides. Of course, he looks the same on either side. Now watch this. With empty hands, I'm going to do something kind of sad to our little stick man friend here. We're just going to start tearing him up, okay? So we tear him into a few little pieces here. Put one more in there. And poor guy, we're going to curl him up into just this little ball here. So that now you can see, I just have this little curled up ball of our stick man. But watch, with a little bit of magic, I'm just gonna unfurl the pieces. Look what happened. Suddenly, somehow, and fortunately, our friend is now completely whole on both sides. Welcome to the Torn and Restored paper. This is the version from Tarbell. There's many more that have come amongst and after it, so feel free to adapt this as you desire, but I wanted to teach this kind of classic principle that is at the foundation for the ways that you can remix the Torn and Restored effect. So if you take issue with certain aspects of this version, or you don't prefer certain things, that's totally fine. You might even be able to come up with solutions within this, but I wanted to give you this classic as it is. I do have some ideas for you as well for how you can make this stronger. So for starters, you're going to need a small, thin paper that also doesn't show through too much. So I felt like this sticky note was a pretty good one for me. And what I'm going to do is peel off two. And then this isn't necessarily something you have to do, but in the book, it was taught with kind of like a thin sliver of paper. I think he actually used tissue paper. So we're going to just kind of replicate the handling by making our own little slivers of paper. So the way Tarbell did it is he had these slivers of paper and then he had writing on them. But you don't have to do writing, you could make a drawing. And I think that's appealing and interesting to people. And depending on, the storytelling you want to do, you can kind of get something out of the fact that, like in my case, I did a stick man. So I'm going to do a stick man again, but you can get creative. You could draw maybe a flower or a tree. You could do a pair of dumbbells, anything like that. And if you're an artist, this is especially useful for you when it comes to your storytelling and your magic. Now I use dry erase marker, which in this does bleed through. So all you have to do for that is make sure you cover it up on both sides. So it helps to check front and back that you have it down. Same thing on this one, you're just going to make a duplicate stick man on both sides. So I did this pretty quick here for demonstration. And of course in performance, you're gonna want to match them as much as you can. That's something that Tarbell stressed, is the duplicate nature of it. You want it to match as much as you can, right? But I think by having it front and back, you are allowing kind of the discrepancy to be there a little bit, in that, people are seeing a drawing on the front and back. They don't remember which drawing they're seeing, so they're expecting a little bit of variation between the two drawings, front and back. In this presentation too, it kind of allows you a little bit of the, I don't know, you could make it into a joke or whatever, where you're saying like, oh, you want to see what he looks like from the back? And it's the exact same thing. Next, you're going to tape these two together. Now, the way that Tarbell did it was with like a dot of glue. You can certainly do that, but I'm just going to use a little bit of double stick tape. Take off a small piece, and if it's not small enough, you can even fold that piece over onto itself so that you just have this little square right there. And this is why I did a stick man. It helps me to just literally put this right on the dot of where his head is, and that's going to be helpful for a couple reasons. Next, just line these two up, squeeze them together, and the only thing you want to be careful of is not crumpling up the papers too much, because you want one of them to look semi non-crinkled. Next, take one of the papers and you're just going to fold it in on itself. And now when I get to here where I'm about to reach the tape, I'm going to fold in from the other side. This is why I feel like the head of the stick man is helpful, is that it's almost a guide as to where the tape is. So I folded up all the way to here, I folded down, and now I'm going to fold in. So you fold in just around that tape, and of course you don't want to pull the tape up, so just be mindful of where that is. Next, it can be helpful to kind of crinkle it a little bit, almost so that it makes like his word for it was like a flower. Just adding that little bit of crinkling is going to help. So here's kind of a picture of what it looks like for me. Now, in any case, if you want to experiment with this, it's helpful if this is as flat as possible and as small as possible, so that when you're covering it, it'll look natural. But now here's why the stickman is helpful for me. When I show this from the front, not only is this paper not too see-through, but I've also colored in a large black circle right over where you might peek through to the other side. So you can see that from making the gimmick, I did kind of squeeze and crinkle the front paper a little bit, but it still looks normal. It still looks not too weird in that spot. So now in performance, you're getting the exposed view here. Because it's taped there, you get this nice display of both your hands. Everything's covered behind the stickman's head, and I like that it's not on the upper edge, so there's no overlapping there. You get to do this nice display of both your hands. And that's something Tarbell stressed, you definitely want to start there. Now, his display of the backside, he had it with, he had some characters across, and he was able to turn his whole body and show it to the side horizontal while covering with his thumb. That's how he did it. In our case, you could come over like this and show the backside. Now this is where I'm inviting your creativity. I think there is a potential weakness that you're kind of having this thing where, when you show the other side of a stick man drawing, you would probably expect to see the head. You'd probably expect to see that. So you have this weird thing where you're just showing it like that. So that could be a discrepancy. So maybe consider some of the other drawing types like the flower, or maybe you have multiple flowers that way. And so by you covering one, it's less discrepant. It's less of a huge focus. So picture that maybe there's a flower here, flower here, flower here, same on the other side. Then it's not as big of a deal because they're still seeing some of those characters. I think that's probably why Tarbell did it that way. He knew that by covering up one character, it was okay because they still see the string along of characters. And that way your brain kind of completes the picture and it doesn't seem like you're purposely covering one special thing. So that's maybe the one downside of this application, but I wanted it to be a drawing, and I think there's still something you can take advantage of here when it comes to there's a person there in terms of your presentation. But here's another example. This is kind of the idea I'm saying, is if you have 3 to 5 characters on both sides filled in, or maybe you could even get away with it in this way, then when you show the backside and you're covering that piece with your thumb, it would look more something like this. And it's just in that display where you have it very free and open, and then when you're going to the back, you cover with your thumb and you're kind of turning your body and you're showing the backside, and then you go back up and show. This allows you this very free and open looking display. They see nothing in your hand, and your thumb is doing all the job covering. But back to this iteration of it, if you want to do it vertical like that for your stickman, that's how you would do it. So once you've done that, you can come back to this free and open display from the front, and you're going to come sideways and you're going to rip up the paper. Now, once again, I believe in the book, he stressed that because you don't have to hold this in place, it's helpful to show your hands as empty as possible, as many times as possible, especially before you get to here. So now when you get to this rip, you want to make sure you're ripping before and probably not after it, especially if you don't have room. So in my case, I'm going to put all these in front, and then I'm going to fold and curl them in similar to how I did on the non-ripped side. And then I kind of flower them in as before. And I'm going to stress again what he stressed. It can be very hard to not look like you're just covering everything. Even in my performance, it was really tempting, right, to just kind of cover everything with my hands. But the strength here is that you don't need to do that. So really make sure you're making it very free and open. And then the next display you're going to do is one where you're holding both sides of the papers like this. By holding both sides, you can show it front and back. Now, just kind of naturally, you might find yourself turning it over during the fold up procedure. I think that's okay too, if you can kind of get away with some coverage there. But regardless of when, at some point you're going to want to go from the ripped side to the unripped side. So maybe one thing you can do is what you're seeing me do here. You're showing it both sides, then you come over to hold and you can unfurl it then. But regardless, you got to get to that folded up side. So you go over to the folded up side, and then you very freely show how it has restored just by unfurling the pieces. So now you're in this position and you can go to here. So it really is kind of a reversal of what you did before, because now you're back into this display. You can do your coverage and you can go into the other display. That does make it important that you fold this up small enough to be covered by the thumb so you can do that display once again, and you want to make sure it's folded in on itself so that it does not fall out of place, because these are technically loose pieces. As long as they're folded in on themselves in that final moment, you get them holding into place, and that way you can display from the front like this. And once again, you see that strength of both the color of the paper you use and of the placement of your drawings. So remember, think about the drawing you use, think about the paper you use, and leverage the strengths of the makeup of the effect. So make sure that this goes with what you can do for the display, and take advantage of it being attached at the back so that you can do these nice displays of your hands, this kind of subtlety of it seeming like your hand is otherwise empty. When it's all curled up, you're going to hold it in ways that show your hand's empty, just so that it looks all very fair and very free. Now, this is unexaminable, but some of the best looking effects honestly are. Even some marketed effects today that I love, they're non-examinable. But in the case of a visual trick, I think you can sometimes get away with that, because what you're showing is kind of a quick moment that you can then move into other magic. So for example, there's a torn and restored bill I really love that came out last year, where you show the bill torn, you quickly restore it, you fold it up, you put it in your pocket. And something for me that's helpful to think of is, okay, if I've just done that, maybe I go into another bill trick, right? And so we're moving on. It's like, wow, we've seen this happen. We've seen this stick man restore. Think about moving into more tricks with sticky notes, for example. But there you go, guys. That's a fun torn and restored paper effect. Remember to practice all those key points so that you can get it down and really enjoy doing it. But if you like that, check out the video that YouTube is going to recommend at the end here. But until next time, keep enjoying your magic, stay a hobbyist at heart, and I'll see you guys in the next video.